It's now 28 minutes to 8. Excuse me. Back in September on this programme, we spoke to the mother of a girl who, from the age of 13, was being sexually exploited by a group of men in West Yorkshire. Sarah, as she called herself, described how the family's pleas for help had been repeatedly ignored by the police.
We went to the police hundreds of times. We used to call them out on a daily basis when she was going missing. And they were just still building up a file, and there was nothing they could do until the girls actually spoke up and said, yes, I am being groomed and sexually exploited. I just thought, well, what are you supposed to do? Because as time was going on, we knew that it was quite a big scale this was on, the amount of parents that we were coming into contact with.
Well, after that interview was broadcast, a senior police officer contacted Sarah. The force acknowledged that the family had been badly let down, and a fresh investigation is now underway. This year, we also heard about the appalling scale of grooming in the town of Rotherham. So how many more cases are there like it across the country, where investigations have yet to be carried out? It's an issue our guest editor, Dame Elizabeth Butler-Sloss, wanted to know more about. She, of course, was the first chair of the government's inquiry into historical child abuse before she had to stand down earlier this year. Our reporter, Tom Bateman's been back to meet Sarah.
At the moment we're walking through the local park. This is one of the areas that my daughter was actually groomed from. They used to bring the girls here and they used to sit here drinking in the bandstand and places like that.
In the time that's gone by since her daughter was targeted, Sarah's been able to piece together some of the events that took place. A group of men befriended several schoolgirls aged around 13, including Sarah's daughter. The girls were given cigarettes, alcohol and gifts. They were slowly manipulated into doing what the men wanted.
It started to be like on a weekend, she'd come home later and later and later. As she became more and more entrenched, it were 24, 36 hours at a time.
So what were you thinking when that was happening?
We were just thinking, what the heck's happening? Every time she didn't come in, we'd ring the police. We used to beg her not to go out because she was begging and pleading, and then actually took a knife to herself, said she'd harm herself if she couldn't get out of the house. These men had such a hold over her. That was it. You know, they had her.
Obviously at the time, you were seeing only a very small part of what was really going on. Knowing what you know now, what was happening to your daughter?
My daughter was being groomed, sexually exploited and trafficked to other towns. All this time right under our noses, and these men had more power over her than what we did. She was passed around, taken to see different men and being made to perform, sex. Sometimes locked in properties, unable to get out, being kept against her will, a bit threatened. We got in no help at the time from the authorities. Some officers would say, what do you keep going back for? You must like what you're doing. So there was always the blame culture, but against either us or hers.
What did you think when you heard that?
I was absolutely appalled, absolutely disgusted.
At the age of 16, Sarah's daughter fell pregnant to one of the perpetrators. To this day, none of the men involved in her grooming has been caught, but Sarah is now satisfied West Yorkshire Police are fully investigating, following her interview with us in September. Her family's story echoes the many more from Rotherham in the neighbouring county, where 2 years of painstaking work by the Times journalist Andrew Norfolk uncovered 2 decades of sexual exploitation of young girls by men of Pakistani origin, unchallenged by the local authority, ignored by the police.
My name is Fleur Strong. I'm the Business Development Director for PACE, which is Parents Against Child Sexual Exploitation.
For this organisation that specialises in helping the parents of children who are groomed, the grip of sexual exploitation extends hundreds of miles beyond the handful of places known about so far.
I can show you families from Torquay to Exeter to Norfolk. There are families in Edinburgh, Belfast, all of them who will be suffering from this type of crime that lasts for many families for years and years. I would say that without doubt that there are thousands of families who are being affected today. I couldn't tell you whether it's high or low, but it is a significant number. This type of child abuse is in every town.
She says that after the cases in Rotherham, senior officers around the country do understand the complexity of investigating grooming, with children often shamed or intimidated by their abusers into feeling complicit and refusing to make a complaint to the police. But she says that wisdom often fails to reach the front line, where all this can too often be written off by the police officer or social worker who shows up as nothing more than wayward adolescents and rowing families. In other cases, parents feel more helpless as their children grow up.
We're working in areas like Exeter, where we have one mother at the moment who is having a very difficult time. Her daughter has turned 16. She's been groomed. She has been groomed partly through legal highs, which is something that we are increasingly seeing being used by perpetrators. So things that you could have used to safeguard a child, for instance, child abduction notices, you can no longer use those if the child is 16 and living at home.
Back in West Yorkshire, where the whole process began for Sarah's daughter in this suburban park, the police say they now have 84 live investigations into suspected grooming. They admit to having been slow in the past to recognise it, but now the message at least is very different. It was Assistant Chief Constable Russ Foster who contacted Sarah earlier this year.
Fundamentally, we have changed the way that we've dealt with victims, and we place more emphasis on putting the needs of the victim at the heart of what we do. And I'd just like to reassure people that survivors will be listened to, they will be taken seriously, and we'll support them and ensure that we maximise every opportunity to bring these perpetrators to justice.
What's all this done to your family?
It hasn't broken us like they probably wanted us, to be. It hasn't drove that massive wedge between us. In fact, it's made us stronger. We were strong before, but we're even closer now than ever before.